live on YouTube. We're going. And I want to
Because stepping in.
By the way, the team is growing so fast that actually we don't need any participants anymore. We're already full. It's like, it's like after a while, we're like, who are the participants and who is actually? There's one participant, like, and the rest is like 100 of us.
Hello.
We're like something.
Hello, Vipke.
Hello, Vipka.
Good to see you all.
Yay. There's 22 of us. Wow.
Amazing how much more relaxed this is now.
Hi, Freddie.
So how many did we predict would there were in the end I have 131 signups. I stopped counting, but so when we say half, we'll say about 60, 65. It's prediction. Let's see. What are you doing, Union?
What are you seeing?
I'm seeing I think it's your
Google
desktop.
Drive.
Yeah.
You're sharing
the
it.
wrong. Yeah. Let's try something else. This one.
Yay.
Oh, Michael's
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, go and shall we let them in?
Yeah.
All right, go. Ah, Colin is there too.
Oh, is that a yes for letting them in?
Yes, yes, let them-
Yes.
yeah.
I
So
think so.
someone press the button.
I did.
Ooh, numbers rising.
Woo!
Mm-hmm.
Yay. Oh, Patricia's here as well. Yay. She came back.
She came back. Yeah, yeah, because she disappeared.
Hello.
Hi.
Oh, hi.
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 Hey, everyone.
Trisha shooting star.
So be hey everyone, make sure that you're comfortable. Maybe get some water or some coffee or whatever you be comfortable. We're going to start in just a few minutes. You are in our decompression zone, so be decompressed. I'm not sure how you do that, but let's just try it. I go, breathing sometimes helps. That's at least they told me. I don't know. Yunyan, you think breathing helps to decompress?
No, don't breathe. Don't breathe. That would be a new experiment for this session.
Yeah.
Don't breathe.
Like, all right, stop breathing, everyone. Please, you're spreading a virus. Just stop breathing. Come on. It's that. The one is how hard is that? Just come on. Just stop breathing, people. Everything will be. Well, I mean, we're going to solve everything, really. Well, maybe I shouldn't go into this. All right, so a couple of minutes in our decompression zone. Again, make yourself comfortable. And yes, we are hypnotizing you. Just make sure that you like the jam. Come back next time. So anyone wants to share how they've been this last week? You can unmute yourself. You have the power.
I haven't been breathing and I've been hypnotized.
You have been breathing? How did that?
Hypnotized? We want details.
More details. You will be. No.
I see some new names. I would love to meet Carrie Harmer.
Carrie, are you there? Can you hear us?
Or Liz White.
Who else is new? Who hasn't been to one of our...
Uli, I see Uli Weinberg.
Uli's new. Hi, Uli.
Hi. Hi.
He's not new to you.
He's not new.
Not to that meeting, yes. To the decompression zone, yes. I'm completely new.
Hi, Uli. Nice to have you with us.
Yeah, absolutely. One more minute and just relax, relax. We'll let people in slowly. Who else is there who hasn't been with us before?
We got
Liz
in
hasn't
the
been with
chat.
us.
Yeah,
Sorry?
Liz. We got Liz, who hasn't been with us.
And we've got Minna.
Ah,
I think Andrea also, that might be Andrea Nerj. Welcome if you're new in our sessions.
Thank you all.
Okay. Are you
Right.
seeing the same time as I do, Arne?
Yeah, I do. So we are kind of letting people in now. This is a very special session. It is also after, I think, the summer holidays, at least in this part of the world, kind of are over, and so people are coming back, and we have a lot of people who signed up. So I am allowing a little bit more time to let people come in, because there's a lot of new people and they weren't aware of our little traditions or the way we kind of open in a decompression zone, and we all kind of stick to the time. So it's a 1 hour. We're going to start in maybe half a minute or a minute. But I know that Beck, our guest, is really eager to have you be part of the start of her story, because it's going to be important for your experience. So we are going to allow people to come in. At the end of the hour, so we're going to end, which is 6 o'clock my time here in the Netherlands. But at the top of the hour, we're going to stop. You're allowed to go, that's the session, but we have 30 minutes of backstage for everybody who is new. One of the rituals that we've created is our backstage, and the backstage is also an opportunity just to kind of unmute yourself and talk and share what you thought, and we can kind of talk a little bit more with our guests, Beck. And we will have a breakout session. And for the people who are used to these sessions, the web jam, we sometimes have them really quickly and it's like 10 minutes. We actually have a little bit more time. We try to learn, because basically the web jam is all about learning. We always say this is an opportunity for the community and ourselves to fail forward in public, to try and kind of conquer this brave new world of online facilitation and online experiences and what have you. So that's sort of what we're going to experience. So today, our guest is Beck Weeks. Beck, where are you?
I'm here.
Hey there.
Hello.
Hi. Hello.
Hi.
So I'm really, really happy to have you here. We will be starting, I think, because we have enough people in. I'm really pleased to have you. You actually, this is how when you are in a networked world, sometimes you meet people that you've never heard before, but they are but they're so interesting, and you've been one of those people that I discovered, and I'm so looking forward to this session, because it's about something that you've developed. I'm going to let you explain all that. It's something new. I really enjoyed it. It's basically all in an app. We're going to experience part of it. You're going to do something you have never done before. That's also why we have this platform, to experiment, to try something out. You're going to do that, which is awesome. And we are all eager to learn from you. And I'm very, very happy to have you. I would just say, take it away and please introduce yourself and what we are about to do.
Great. Thank you so much, Anna. I'm really thrilled to be here with you. And I have taken Arne at his word that this is a place for experimentation and trying new things and failing forward together. So I haven't you're getting this for the first time. A lot of the things that we'll try together in small groups, we've got similar versions in the product that Arne was alluding to, but we've never done them in a group setting. We've never done them in a session like this. And the things that we'll start with up the top of the session are brand new as well. So first time for me, hopefully first time for you, and we'll learn together and have a good time. So with that, we're going to start with a little test. I promise it's a fun one. But in this test, all I want you to do is, and I'm trying not to use real slides, even though my management consultant background makes me want to use slides all the time, but I'm going with paper slides today. So I just want you to just listen to the words I say. Don't write anything down, no writing. So just listen. After I finish reading this list, I will give you a chance to write. So if you do have a pen and paper handy, great for afterwards, but for now, just listen. Okay, listen to this list of words I'm about to read you. Here we go. Rest, bed, nap, peace, drowsy, blanket, doze, tired, awake, snooze, yawn, slumber, snore, wake, dream. Okay, I'm going to give you just a minute to write down the words you heard me read. Okay, have you written, anyone put your hand up if you need more time? No, I think we're good. Okay, so I'll be looking at your physical hands. So for those of you, if you do have your video off, this is a great chance to turn it on. But if you don't, I'll be going off the videos I can see. So I just want to see a show of hands. Who heard the word bed? Okay. Who heard the word tired? Great. Who heard dream? Great. Bit of an interesting mix between start, middle, end of the list. Who heard the word slumber? And who heard the word sleep? Now, what's great about you guys who heard sleep, you get some bonus points because I didn't say the word sleep. Now, does anyone want to try to explain why they said the word, why they thought they heard the word sleep, why they thought why they heard sleep? Anyone hand?
Associated?
I think you told slept or rest something. Very first word, rest.
Rest.
Yeah, yeah. So that may be the reason that they took it as a sleep or something.
Exactly, and not just the first word, but the whole list: rest, bed, blanket, doze. If you look at this whole list of words, it was a set of words that we've sort of formed an associative network around the idea of sleep. And there's sort of your brain has stored things that aren't just the words. You've stored the gist of what I said as I read those words out to you, and you didn't have a chance to write them down. So you stored that gist, and the gist of it was stuff connected with sleep. And usually it's fine when you store the gist of something, but in this case, I wanted you to recall specific words, and the gist word was then a trick. That was a lure. In fact, it meant that I got you to sneakily fail this little first test of ours in the best possible way. So well done. Thank you. I hope that what I wanted you to feel there is that those of you who put your hands up and said that you heard sleep, what we see is that we actually believe we heard the word sleep. So I hope you felt that idea of we can't necessarily trust what we remember to be true. Your brain might have created some kind of false memory. And why did I start with that? I started with that because that's what Peak is all about. Peak is all about trying to get you to feel and experience that idea. I could have just told you about the fact that this is a something in psychology called a DRM paradigm, and they've done a bunch of tests on it, and 50% of the time people remember the false word, but that's not as powerful as feeling it for yourself. And that's one of the principles that we have built into this product that we're building called Peak. So the other key principles, I think the main thing is this idea that it can happen in just a few minutes. We can get you to feel something, really feel an insight. And hopefully now you'll leave this call thinking, oh, maybe the next time I have a conversation with my partner where they think, oh, this definitely happened and you definitely said that, and I think I definitely didn't say that. You know, you might both absolutely, the one thing you can be sure of is you both definitely remember it that way. But that's the one thing you can be sure of. So hopefully having an aha moment in just a few minutes. The other idea is that that doing is far more powerful than reading. So I could have showed you the table, you felt it, it's much more powerful. So just a few minutes, doing is more powerful than reading. And experimentation. So not all of you put your hand up, you know, not all of you were lured in by that false law word, but it's, I think, something that much like this activity, not every one of these might sort of immediately resonate with you, but hopefully if you try enough of them in the app, something will stick and something will resonate for you. So being open to experimenting with little activities is something we want to foster in the app as well. So who's we? I did just want to very quickly introduce ourselves, and I will bring that up so you can see who my other co-founders are that I'm working with. If I just share my screen very quickly. So I have the pleasure of working with these two professors. Mike Norton is a professor at Harvard Business School. Sendhil Mullainathan is a professor at the University of Chicago, and they're both behavioral science experts. Mike's background is in psychology, Sendhil's is in economics, and together they overlap in this field of behavioral insights. How do we apply the insights from psychology in our lives every day? And so what we've tried to do is take all these great psychological insights and put them together in this app that lets you experience them, lets you think about how they might affect your life, and give you little activities to take that forward. So we've got, I've introduced ourselves very briefly, but I wanted to start with just one more icebreaker for us all. So actually I'll go back to my screen just for a second. I'd like you to pick just pick one, whoops, just pick one of these questions. We've got a little icebreaker and there's something to follow. So pick whichever question you feel comfortable answering. I would love you to share it with the group, and I'll go first. I'm going to pick the fourth icebreaker. When did I last sing? I have a 2-year-old nephew who loves to hear me sing badly as I badly play my ukulele over FaceTime back to Australia. So that was me singing last night, a bit of an Australian artist called Vance Joy. So last night, can't stop me singing. I'd love to hear now just a couple. Let's just hear a couple of the icebreakers. So pick one question, and if we could just go to just unmute and share one icebreaker answer with us, with the group. Anyone? Anyone brave enough to share?
I sang last night during my workout.
Fantastic. A couple more?
In my teenager years, I used to sing Let's Get On from Marvin Gaye every single day while I was on my chore, and yeah, throughout the whole day. That was my song.
I love it. Let's have two more.
The scariest thing I ever did, oh, sorry. The scariest thing I ever did for fun was a night dive in California.
Wow. Would you do it again?
Yes.
Very good. Okay, last one. Who's going to share?
Yeah, the scariest thing I did was when I was in Hong Kong. I went through this glass bridge. It was like more than 5,000 feet height. And
wow.
I would not do it again.
Yeah. Very wise. So there'll be a chance, if you have a little time in your groups, to discuss these amongst yourselves. But what I want you to think about now is, we're a bunch of mostly strangers coming together. It's very natural that we would try to get to know each other, ask each other some icebreakers. But I just want to pose the question, do you know how your parents would have answered those questions? Or even maybe a sibling? You know, why is it that, I think particularly with parents though, we come in as we become adults, we're already most of the way through the relationship. We think we know our parents. And yet how many of these questions that we just looked at, how many of those could you actually answer for your parents? Do you really know them? Have you really stepped back and built that sort of adult relationship with your parents? And isn't it crazy that we could have someone in our lives that we might think of as someone who's so close to us, and yet we might not know how they would answer these questions? So I'd want to just leave you with that thought about the idea that
Just leave us with that.
just leave us with that thought, that to take it with you, you know, maybe I'll leave you with a little takeaway at the end to act on. But isn't it that could be true, that some of the people closest to us in our life, we actually might not know some of these questions that we would ask of strangers to get to know them? Why don't we ask these questions of our parents? Why don't we know which album our dad listened to, or which scary thing our mum did that she would never do again? So I want to just leave you with that thought, as we're actually a little bit early, which is great. We can now start breaking ourselves into the groups. So when we send you off into the groups, what you're going to see is a link to a slide presentation. There's 3 sections. There's a section for the A group, a section for the B group, a section for the C group. Now you're going to work through the little activity that's in each section. And within each section, there's some things you'll do together and some things you'll think about and then talk about. The one thing I want you to really, the mindset I want you to take into that group is a mindset of curiosity. So just being curious, both being curious about the approach you're bringing to the group. You know, if you notice yourself either wanting to embrace the idea or to reject it, you know, be curious about that. Be curious about each other. How are you each thinking about the concept? Be curious about what each of you has to share, and likewise share in the group when the discussion points ask you to as well. So take that curiosity forward, and we're going to have these groups now where you'll each run through some short activities, and then we're going to come back together and talk about what you found in each of them.
Okay. So first of all, I put the instructions in the chat. That's over there. And we are 54 people, and I'm going to make 8 groups, meaning that you will be with about 7 persons.
You'll see how do they know which section they need to go to?
That's what I am going to put in the chat now. If you are number 1, you're going to be A. If you're 2, you're going to be B. If you are 3, you are going to be C. And if you're 4, you're going to be A again. 5 is B, 6 is C, and so on.
Okay.
Is that okay?
So
yeah.
you go to the chat, make sure you check the chat. You will be in a group. What if they forget? Because when you're in group 5, and the question will be, were we B or so? Will we put this also in the chat for the groups?
Yeah, I've got it in the chat right now, so everybody can see, and I will just copy it again and again until you have started. Okay? I am ready to create the breakout rooms. See you after back. It will take 20 minutes. Is that right?
That's right.
That's right. Okay.
You see on top of the of your breakout, you'll see the number of your breakout group, right?
Yes. Okay.
Because there's a question in the chat. How do we know where we are? That's
yes.
You're welcome, Donna.
Okay. Bye-bye for now. See you later on. Okay.
Now you can see the number. You can say,
I'm going to ignore. I just got an invite for breakout room 4 that I'm going to ignore for now.
Yes,
exactly.
Yeah. Great. And I can see people are going and going and going and going.
Yeah.
And I'll make sure that everybody is in the right room, and then we are going to have our chat back.
Great.
Let me see who is here. Who's here? And sometimes, let me see. Okay, so Colleen is still here. Mark is here. That's interesting. Okay. Ezekiel, are you not going to? Yep, he is. Mark.
Yeah, I can go. I just was curious, like who's staying in the main room.
Okay. And Colleen, let me see, where is Colleen? Ilonka, should I move you to, I can move you, Ilonka, should I do that? Okay. I'm just too quick for this system. And then we've got Ishita. Let's see where Ishita is. Yeah. Okay. So Ezekiel, you stay with us? No, I'm going to switch on the timer back.
Great.
So that will be 90 minutes. Now somebody's coming in, I think. So I got my timer here. Let me see what is happening. Let me copy it one other time, the whole message, okay?
Great.
So I'll do it again. Let's see what happens. Yeah. Okay, and get this out of my way. And what do I see here? So I'm looking at the list of people who are in a room. And there's one person who's not assigned to a room. Then I quickly choose a room with not so many people. I think number 8. This person, Hashti Rakhwa, I'm going to assign to 8 and surprise him. So let me check again on Ezekiel. Are you still here, or do I just have a frozen screen? Maybe you can explain this. I know you can explain stuff about people and parents and children, but I want you to explain why people get frozen.
I do see one person who's in a waiting room for this room. Are you seeing?
Yeah. Shall I check again? So I think now we are together.
There's
It's 3 who are 8. Yeah, let me drag a screen. I have muted him to come in. Hi, Hashti. Hi, Hashti. Hi, Hashti. Okay. Yeah, just let us have our conversation and keep Hashti with us. Shall we do that?
Great.
Yeah? Yeah. We'll see when she comes in. Yeah. Okay, that was very interesting when you asked about parents. I felt, Professor Beck is asking me a question and I don't have an answer for it. Yeah. It's the same in my situation, that there are some questions I did not ask my mom and did not ask my dad, and I am aware of it. I am aware of that. I didn't.
And, I think for those, I'm lucky I still have my parents. I want to ask more of those questions while I can, because it's something that I think until you think deeply about it, most of us haven't. I think you assume you know them because they've been around your entire life. And you also have that, you forget that they had a life before you, because in your mind they are just this person who, their job was to facilitate your life. And so sometimes it even slips your mind to think about what their life was before you.
I must tell you that I do have 2 teenagers. So while we are also feeling how... Hi, Paul.
Hi, can you put me back into room 3? I got dumped out of the conference.
To room 3. Let me think.
Oh, room 3 is a great one. I mean, they're all great ones, but
I would like to 2, room 3. There you
Or
go.
anywhere. I'm happy to go anywhere. Oh, breakout room 3 just popped up. Thanks very
There
much.
you go. Isn't that fun, eh? I feel that people are flying through this world. Oh, hi, Mark. Did you fly back to us?
We have a problem. We lost access to the slides.
No.
Oh, okay, then again. Okay.
Can you broadcast a message, Yun Yen?
Yeah.
Just
Link
stating
coming
that
up.
that you're working. Yeah, we got it, Arna. Sorry.
Link to slides coming. That's what I broadcast.
Okay.
Okay.
Can they try it now?
Yeah.
Can you
okay,
put it
hold on
in
a
the
second.
chat? Yeah. If you put it in the chat.
Yep, it worked. It looks like it's back now.
Phew.
What was that all about? How did that happen?
I think it must have triggered something when so many people opened it that it changed back to a restricted only people who have been added can access as opposed to anyone with the link. But I've just changed it again.
Very
So
strange.
I'll keep an
Yeah.
eye on it.
Maybe a security thing in your system. Okay, very good. Thanks, Beck.
Thank you for that.
I'm gonna try to go back to my room. Let's
Yeah.
see. Okay, I'm going back to my room.
Yeah, okay. Bye.
Go to your room, Mark.
Yeah, okay, so that works well. You see, so yeah, this could have happened in real life as well, in a physical session. And that's why you and I can take this as just very, very light.
I'm very pleased to be able to do that. I'm hoping, I'm keeping an eye. I can see that there's 28 people in the document. So that is a little lower than, I wonder if I should make a copy and share another version.
You take your decision. I can wait for you.
Let me do that just in case. Well, I think the numbers are going up now, so I think it's okay. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So what I was sharing with you, I recognized the feeling. And just 2 days ago, my daughter was really, what's the right English word? Perhaps a little bit stressed that she wanted more attention from me, and somehow I did not give it. So there is this mother-daughter situation, one having the impression not getting enough and the other having the impression giving a lot.
Yes. And what did you feel in that moment?
Very squeezed, like how to give, what answer would be a good one for that particular situation, explaining why it happened. I thought that was not the thing. That was not the explaining why it happened on my side. You know, I thought that's not going into the right direction. So I tried to acknowledge her feelings about it. The feelings were real, that she felt she was not getting the right amount of attention. I try to stay calm and also let time work and let the message softly sink in and see how her emotions would develop, would go in that, I think, 10 till 12 minutes. So it was not a long thing, but it was long enough because she's also a very wise girl, so she could empathize with me and say, oh, but it doesn't matter. But it does matter. I could see in her, in her face, it does matter.
Yes.
So it was a mirror situation of the situation that you were talking about. She was asking me, she did well. She was really asking me, why did this happen? Yeah.
Yeah, I think, and there's some questions are easy to answer, like what album did you listen to most when you were a teenager? And other questions are a lot more difficult to answer. And even I think sometimes you can feel that initial response. If you'd said sort of initially I felt defensive and wanted to say, no, that's not, that's not what's happening, that would be an entirely valid response. you know, any response is valid. I think part of some of the things we try to get people to do in peak is to notice that response, and then you can decide what to do. But it's the noticing. It actually makes me think of there's some research around the idea of missing data. So what do we see and not see, and how do we make assumptions based on some of the things we don't see? So for example, and obviously I don't know exactly the situation, but let's say your daughter thought, oh, you're giving much more attention to, you know, her sibling. You might think, oh, but you don't see all the things that I am actually doing for you as well. And that's a situation of having a conversation to point out what this is called the missing data of the things that she's not seeing. You know, it can apply in other situations too, where if you have a partner and, you know, oh, you always leave your shoes right by the door. You know, why do you always do that? Or, you know, you never put the garbage in the garbage disposal, you know. And we have this idea, we get fixed on an idea, then we see the things that confirm that idea with this confirmation bias, and we don't see, you know, you don't notice the time that they did take the rubbish, the garbage out, and the time that they did put the shoes away, because you're so focused on noticing the times when the things that you were aware of did happen. And so I think trying to kind of catch that.
Yeah, how does it happen that we don't realize that as human beings? So when you are explaining it to me, I'm nodding like a very wise adult, you know. But caught in the heat of the moment, where is the missing data then?
Yeah, and so it's not there, which is why, you know, I think having a conversation about it, for instance, with the partner always leaving their shoes, you know, if you have that conversation, I think you always do this. Not a great conversation. Ideally, there's a follow-up maybe of, I'm sure there are times you don't. Can you help me see those? Because I know we have had a conversation about this before and you've been trying, and I want to notice those times so that
And there was a reason I love you, but that has become missing data. Yeah.
So I think calling it out and drawing attention to it and actually having a chat about it. I mean, it doesn't help if there is no missing data in the sense that someone, I hope they're...
Yeah, I'll let her in. That's Maria.
I'm just worried now that after Mark said they lost access every time, I'm worried someone's going to come back and tell us that they...
Why don't you check? I'll say hello to Maria, and I'll invite her just to join us for
No, I think it's good. I was only worried in case Maria was coming back in to say we've lost access, but it looks okay.
It looks okay. Maria, you're welcome to join our conversation.
Thank you, because I lost the connection.
Oh, okay. Do you want? Did you start in the breakout room then?
Yes, we were on the beginning. We were just reading when I left, when I was dropped.
Oh, okay.
I lost the connection. We were in the beginning, only just to do the presentations.
Do you want to go back to your room then?
If it's possible, I think so.
Which number was it, Maria?
It was number 6.
Okay, I'll go put you to number 6.
If it's possible, yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Nice to meet you back.
Nice to meet you, Maria.
Thank you.
Let's see what happens for Maria. Yeah.
Luckily, we had a little bit of extra time because I think I had we raced through the first section.
I think it was perfectly clear, so no worries there.
Oh,
no
good.
worries. Yeah. So may I ask you more about the research and peak? So it is based on a lot of research, and I downloaded peak as well. It's something that I could use and play around with my husband or children, perhaps, or close friends. How does the idea arise to have an app?
So all of us, so Sendel, Mike, and myself, we were all working in this realm in slightly different places. So I was working, applying these principles from psychology, but in a public policy setting, working in the Australian government. Sendel is a behavioural economist who has founded an NGO, a consulting firm that does nonprofit consulting with behavioural science and has done a lot of research in this space, as has Mike. Mike has done a ton of research, particularly Mike's research is around money and happiness. And I think there's some really great insights to be had there. But all of us had this idea in various ways. Sendel sort of pulled Mike and I together into this, the three of us thinking about how can we, let's see where they want to, how can we communicate these insights to people so that they can actually live them in their life? Because the thing we had found was these insights are getting applied in policy, they're getting applied by companies in marketing, but they're not, it's not very easy for an individual to decide or to know what's worth applying in their own life and then to find a way to do it. I think the closest thing you have so far is you might read an article, for instance, in the New York Times. There's, you might read an article in the Smarter Living section about how this new paper suggests that, you could boost productivity by doing X. So you read the article and you think, that sounds great. I should really do that in my life. And then, you close the article, life goes on and you totally forget all about it. And we wanted to see if putting it in an app could help us do a couple of things. One is create an experience that felt more engaging and more interactive, so that the kinds of experiments that we just did at the start of this call, we get you feeling something as opposed to just reading something. So even if it's as simple as, I'm very curious to see how Group C comes back and if this worked in this context, but there's a version, a moment in the app like that where you have to sort of enter something on the first screen and it's on the next screen then that we sort of present it back in a way that's kind of an aha moment. And so an app can do that because we can have that interactive ability. The other thing that the app can do is then a lot of the insights from psychology around how to use our time, how to think differently happens. You need to sort of put reminders in place to do it at those times. And so an app very easily allows us to say, okay, you've learned about this. When do you want to try it? Either try it now, or you could set this reminder to have that conversation with your partner later tonight. Or, we have a pack on mind wandering. Put the reminder in the calendar to try that later tonight. Or we have a whole new pack on rituals and the power of rituals to help us mark the end of things and the start of things. And so let's put that in your calendar, and at that time, we'll send you a little reminder that will be pre-populated with the thing that you said you wanted to be reminded about. So
let me help this person first. Let's see. Hello, Mr. or Mrs. SPs. Hello.
Hello. Sorry, I'm having technical problems and I'm very late. Sorry.
Okay, no problems. Do you want to stay with us in the general room, or were you in a breakout room before?
I've literally just joined, so I'm running a bit late. Sorry.
Okay, no problem. Just stay with us, and the others are in breakout rooms. And I was having a chat with Beck, with our speaker this session. And,
hello.
We were just talking about. Well, actually, Beck, you should explain in short. And I'll show you the time.
Oh, great. Okay.
It's a minute, but you have one other minute. So after this minute, I'll tell them to come back. Yeah.
So I was just starting to talk about what's the idea behind this app that I'm building with two behavioral scientists. And just to give you some context, what the breakout groups are doing, they're each working on one of what we call a moment in the app, these little experiences that try to convey a piece of psychological research and explain and show a user of the app how you can live that insight in your own life and let you feel the insight through some sort of activity as part of the app experience as well. So I think I was just telling Yuan that the key part for us is that it's about experiencing something as well as being able to actually, so experiencing the aha that makes you think, oh, this is worth trying, and then putting in place the structure to be able to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Have you got an example, your favorite example of that happening?
Yeah, I'll tell you about the one that they're going to tell us about coming back from Group C, but it's called Advice Corner, and there's a great paper that shows that if you're asked to give advice, and in the paper it was with high school students, they gave other high school students advice about how to overcome procrastination and try to be more motivated. It was in giving the advice, the givers actually benefited themselves and improved on their grades. So that idea of giving yourself advice, and there's a bunch of reasons why. We'll see if Group C can tell us a little bit more about what they learned, but that's probably one of my favorites at the moment.
People are coming back now.
Hello.
Let's see, we've got 10 here and more to come. Or maybe they don't want to get out of the breakout room. Meaning your slides and questions did work. Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody.
I'm so excited to hear how it went, because it is, as we were saying at the top, this was a total experiment. We have never done this in this context before, with putting people in groups with slides, let alone virtually. So I'm very curious to see, did it work? Did it absolutely fail? Did anyone take anything away? Was there good discussion? I can't wait to hear. So once we get the cue that we've got everybody back, do we have everybody back now?
Let me see. I think we have. Yeah. Go ahead, Beck. Yeah.
Great. So what we're going to do is, I would love to throw first, we'll go around the groups, not each group, but I'll ask, if we have a couple of comments from Group A and then B and then C, and then we'll open it up to a bigger discussion. So starting with Group A, I'd love to hear from anyone who just wants to give us the 30-second rundown for those who weren't in Group A. What were you guys doing in Group A? What was the A activity about?
Okay, shall I have sorry, Stephen, did you want
to?
You
go. No, you go.
Okay, I only have 5 minutes, so I'd like to share something. Well, we were Group 7, Room 7 actually, and the A assignment was about transitions. What kind of transitions we lost since COVID appeared on Earth. And we lost a lot of transitions, coincidental encounters with colleagues, seeing people in real life, that really adds a lot of value to your encounters. We discussed how we could get back the transitions lost. And finally, we had some things we could do for immediately, like tomorrow. And I think we agreed upon that we needed to take minutes to go outside, breathe fresh air, and have possible coincidental encounters with other people that walk the dog or be in the garden and just look at what's happening outside. So going outside was one of the most important things that we do now as a substitute for the lost transitions.
That's fantastic. Was there a sense that had people noticed that these transitions had been lost, and had they felt the absence of the transitions already before this experience, before doing this activity?
Could you help me, please, the rest of the group? Because,
yeah.
Or maybe another group concerning or dealing with the A version of the assignment.
Can you repeat the question, please, Beck?
So had part of the discussion, I think, was around also, had you noticed prior to thinking about this, were you already aware both of the transitions, that some of these transitions that you had lost, were you aware that you'd lost them? And were you aware of the purpose that they'd served before thinking about how important they can be?
Yeah, Jenny was talking about missing her bike ride to work every day and how that gets her body going, and also just the wind in her hair and that experience of moving through the city.
Yeah,
So
that's a great one. And that's one where I think, it's easy to, there's a benefit because we don't have to spend time commuting anymore, but there is something lost there of that physical sensation of wind in the hair, blood pumping, really getting ready for the day. Sometimes we haven't necessarily sort of almost focused and mourned in a way the loss, and found a way to put something else in place to give us the thing that we maybe didn't realize that we needed before to really sort of set us up for the day. All right, that's great. So we'll throw now to somebody from Group B. So I'd love to hear from Group B around just a quick, what were you up to? And then get ready to jump in with follow-ons after that. But who wants to tell us in Group B what you were up to?
Speak a bit. Our focus was on observation. Our task was to spend 3 minutes observing our space with no judgment, and then return and ask questions about what we observed and how the time felt, whether it was expansive or compressed. And the concept named for us was called the psychophysics of time, which apparently allows us to kind of train our brains to manage time passing, if I'm understanding correctly.
Great. And so the idea there is, it's this, the idea that when time can feel different, a day always has 24 hours in it, but some days feel really long and some days feel really short. And part of why that is because a day that has a lot of new information in it, our brain has to spend time processing all of that. And that makes time feel like it takes longer, even though a minute always takes a minute. And so you might have felt on a vacation in a new place where you're experiencing, every time you go somewhere, you're seeing something new, eating something new, that time feels very full. It feels quite long, versus for some of us lately, you might have felt like you're in the same old routine, you're looking at the same four walls. The tendency there is to slip into time just kind of goes by in a blink because it feels like nothing happened. There's nothing, your brain isn't processing anything. And so one of the things we can trick our brains is to try to give it more information by pausing, noticing, looking at every little detail. What can I see of the leaf on this plant that I haven't fully noticed before? Or the window frame, looking all around for details about it. So did you notice that the time felt slower? Does anyone want to chime in on how that actually felt, reflecting on the time spent noticing? Did you feel anything different about how time had felt in that period versus the rest of the day?
Can I just ask a quick question about that?
Yeah.
Which is, why is it then that when you're bored, it seems like time goes so slowly? Like, I find if I'm fully engaged, time goes very quickly, but if I don't want to be someplace or it's too much information and I'm tuning out, then it feels like it takes forever.
Yeah, and so sometimes things can, there's some other research that, depending on what else is happening, I think boredom is another thing that kicks in, and that's another, there are other things going on there. So that it's also possible to feel that. This is more focused around sort of the routine versus the new, but boredom is a whole other realm as well that I think it's important to focus on. And we have, I think the idea of boredom, for instance, and not something you can do there is instead lean into kind of mind wandering as a creative activity, which can help time feel differently in that kind of state as well.
Mm-hmm.
And when you threw us out of the Google Docs, was that intentional? Because that felt like a long time.
So
was that a
we had
time
it set.
experiment?
I'm going to blame, put that one down to maybe Google playing some experiments on us, but
No, but it's
I guess
interesting.
I've.
Yeah, you should actually, you should do that on purpose, something like that, because it's like an interesting intervention, because you don't know what's going on, and you think you have to move on, and then it only took like maybe even like a minute or so, but depending on, because we were doing tasks and all of a sudden we couldn't, and we're like, that took so that felt long. Anyway, it's just
Yeah, building on that.
Sorry, go ahead.
Building on that, our group was actually witnessing that the text all of a sudden was not there anymore, so we couldn't. And then we started noticing the whole group. What are we doing right now? We are staring at the screen, reading some text, and not acting together, not communicating. And then we felt like, let's switch off the audio and let's try to do something completely different. And
oh, great!
switch off the microphone, switch off the speakers, and we tried for 2 minutes to communicate somehow. It was kind of funny. So we were moving towards a different
we
space.
started speaking through post-its. So we tried to communicate what we were saying, like either through an action or through a post-it or through just a gesture. So it was quite of interesting, because we wanted to because we were running out of time, so we wanted to utilize that time very effectively and meaningfully. That's what came up. So that's what we started doing. It was absolutely fantastic.
That is fantastic.
Ezekiel was the one who initiated that. He said, "What if we read the slides as somebody with who is hearing impaired?" So we just started doing this. We were like, "Yeah, let's just try," and it was, that was my.
Oh, I love it. Well, you definitely followed the instructions of let's be curious. Let's see how else we could approach this. I love it. That's fantastic. I'm seeing a comment too. I just wanted to call out this other idea. Sometimes it's depending on how it feels in the moment versus looking back. It's also true that if your week was full of just all of the same things, that's where time can feel like it went quickly, because nothing seemed to happen. It was the same old, and nothing was stored as something new. So there can also be this difference between what does it feel like in the moment versus, so if you're really bored, for instance, if you did genuinely nothing for a week, you might be very bored in the moment and it feels long. But if you looked back on the week and thought, where did the week go? The week probably felt like it went like that, because you have nothing to recall that is sort of signpost that makes the time feel like it did take longer in memory. So there's that other piece to it as well. Let's throw to Group C quickly before we run out of time. So Group C, do you want to tell us what was going on there? And I know that you guys actually had to write in a table in the document. So with the document challenges, I wonder how that went. Did it work? And tell us about what happened when the reveal was made. Who wants to tell us about what you did with C?
Okay, I speak. Okay, dude, I was holding myself, and no one else was saying anything, so I'll do it. So we had to talk about procrastination, and I'm a big expert about it. And it was a bit of a surprise when we were reading the research after we actually gave all our recommendations. And of course, it tends to be the recommendations that work for us personally. And so if we follow our own advices on how to not procrastinate, you might have a better success than following other people's advices, because you do one with the expertise on your own procrastination rituals. And so that was a bit of a surprise, and certainly enjoyable. I wish we had more time to discuss it all together as a group, and I guess that's also our fault. We never give enough time in these sessions to have everyone talking. But I really wish I had listened more to other people's opinions. I was so curious about some of the recommendations on the table. The table got very big very quickly, so I think we should definitely share that table with the rest of the group later on.
Definitely. And I think I wanted to just call out, because I think this study, it's one of my favorites, that high school students were asked to give advice to other high school students about how to overcome procrastination or be more motivated. And the advice givers themselves actually improved their grades. And there's a couple of things going on. One is that when you give advice, you've had to think critically. So you've constructed probably better advice than if you just thought to yourself, what should I do? You know, you've actually had to think about it and give it to somebody else. You've also constructed it with your own experience in mind. So you've probably tailored it to you. And once you've given the advice, if you then go and start to procrastinate, you're going to create cognitive dissonance between the ideas that you've just expressed, which is don't procrastinate and here's how not to, and the fact that you are procrastinating. And when we have this cognitive dissonance, our brains are going to try to make us take action that will lessen that cognitive dissonance. And in this case, that means taking our own advice and starting to overcome that procrastination for ourselves. So that one I like a lot. I think the little reveal is, you know, put down your advice that we'll share with somebody else. You know, just kidding, we're sharing it back with you. That's the best advice for you. So says this research. So so that's a great one to try in a lot of different areas. We're almost time to wrap up, but we've got a few more minutes. I'd just love to hear if anyone had any other comments about things you discovered about the way you thought when you approached these activities, or just anything else you'd like to share about how it went, other than
we found that on procrastination, that sometimes there's a reason why you postpone things. So it's also a good idea to stop and think and examine your feelings before you go. So that's an advice, but the advice came in talking about it, and not something we gave ourselves.
That's right. And there's definitely, it's not the only thing, but it's one thing that can help, and talking to others can help as well. I just saw a question, what's the app? It's called Pique with a Q, Pique. But yes, that's a great point. There's other advice can help too, but I think sometimes we ignore we think we don't know, and that can help. Our own advice can help ourselves as well, but it's not the only thing.
Sorry, go ahead, Ilonka. I just wanted to say I really like the sort of the way you explain it, as that you give advice based on your own experience and the things that you actually, you know, think are important yourself. So if you give advice to someone else, which is always easier than following your own advice, but it is, yeah, I see your, I see your finger. But it is but because it comes from your knowledge and your experience and who you are, how, you know, it is actually so more fitting with you than with the other person. So it is almost, it's a bit of a mean little trick in a way, that once you told me that, you know, a couple of days ago, it did stick with me. Like, oh, now I'm telling this person, you should do more. If you do more sports, you know, build up really slowly. And I'm thinking, Arne, you should do more sports. You should build up. And I think, oh, Beck.
Gotcha.
I was in a goal setting session the other day, and they suggested that when you do those things, you align them with your values. So that kind of like fits exactly in with that. So if like one of your values is about being fit, then you know, like put in 15 minutes of exercise or something. Or if it's about and then they also use the, you know, Gretchen Rubin, you know who she is?
Yes.
So like if you're an obliger, use that. If you're a rebel, use that. Like think about what is going to motivate you as an individual.
I like that. That's great.
Like, I'm curious have you come across, does this apply if you say like give advice to your younger self? Type of scenarios?
I mean, the research doesn't touch on that, but I think the give advice to your younger self is a great way to it's a very good reflection exercise now to understand maybe what your current values are, and solidify those a little bit. But I would, I definitely think for sure, if you give advice to your younger self and you're still not following that advice today, it's still going to create that cognitive dissonance piece. So if you really should make sure you also follow it now and you're not, it will probably help in that respect, I would guess. I haven't seen the research on it, but that would be my guess.
All right. It is nearly time, people. Let's announce next week's special guest before we say goodbye. Steve, you are with us.
Yep, I'm here.
Please explain a little bit about your session next week.
So we at Design Thinkers Group in the US came across a request for a proposal recently that asked for people using systems design thinking. We're familiar with systems thinking and we're familiar with design thinking, but we were looking for ways that this was being used together. We've seen a few examples, but we wanted to use this session to explore the connection between systems thinking and design thinking and see what tools we might be able to bring over from systems thinking into design thinking and use those for framing challenges and figuring out processes in the challenges that we try to deconstruct with our design thinking methodology. Oh, and I also want to say thank you, Beck. That was great. I should have said that first. That was really enjoyable.
And I'm going to say it again, Beck, thank you for being with us. For those who need to go at this moment, bye-bye for now, and hopefully to see you next week. Beck will stay with us for the backstage. Let me show you the next slides.
Again, at the backstage specifically.
It's really backstage, yes. You can find us. You can find us on different social media channels. So take a look over there. Thank you for being with us, and let's go to backstage.
Yay.
Yoo-hoo!
So how did that feel, Beck? How did your the first time that you went through these exercises like this?
Well, my stress level definitely increased a little when the slides document was kicking people out. I haven't had that before. And I think just you can see maybe when it's happening virtually, people kind of getting connections are lost, people coming back into the group. So you're sort of having that fear of, oh, do they have enough time? Are they, going to be able to get through it? Are they, they've lost the thread. I hope they're going to be able to pick it back up. So I think maybe when it's in person, you don't see as much of it happening with the sort of ping, ping, ping. So definitely that was a new experience for me. But I hope that for those of you who did sort of have trouble with the slides or drop out of a group and come back in, that you still did get something out of it. It was definitely, I was very relieved, I have to say, when we did the first experiment, reading the list of words, the DRM test, and some people did say sleep.
Actually, it was the second word I wrote down, sleep.
Really?
It was the second word. So again, you're like, oh, Beck, come on.
That's fantastic. I mean, that's because it does, and this is something that we talk about a lot with the app, but in psychological research, even if there's a very strong effect in a finding, in a paper, that still means there's still a distribution. There's still some people that it doesn't work for. So there's always a chance that this might happen to be the group where it doesn't work for anybody. Always a bit of a risk and a bit of a terrifying thought. But part of the things, one of the ideas that we try and really help people take when they use the app is this idea that, this one might not work for you, or, you might not find this idea that it may not resonate with you. And that's okay. Either, A, try something else, or B, sometimes we need to hear ideas a couple of times before they really start to resonate with us. Obviously, this test is not one of them. It's either going to work or not work. But in the app, if there's another concept that maybe initially you think, well, does that apply? I think this is what I had the the sort of posted about being curious, we want to get people to say, well, why am I initially thinking that that's not going to work? What can I learn about my response to that idea? And maybe it's true, it doesn't work for me, but maybe I can feel some resistance that I want to interrogate a little bit and push past.
I'll tell you how much I really believed you had said sleep, because when you mentioned like, no, I didn't say that, I was like, no way. And I was like, I'm sure I heard that. And I was hoping for the moment when you said, no, I did say it.
I'll show you the list. It's not on there.
I was like, that's how much I really believed it. I thought, I need to check the recording of this. I could almost swear I heard the word, because I was trying to do these sequences of words in my mind to keep track of all the words. And of course, all of them so related. And so sleep was just like, yeah, sure it is there.
And that's why I'm so glad that it does really, I think maybe the most interesting thing is that even when there's some studies where the researchers tell the participants that they're going to trick them. So I could have said to you, there's going to be a trick in here. I'm going to trick you with something. Even in that case, people still think they heard sleep, even when they're on the lookout for a trick. And so it's just, I think, a super powerful example of the fact that our brains are storing information in all kinds of ways that we're not aware of. And sometimes that means faulty things can slip through. Yes.
Oh, sorry, Vic. I think that, thank you for sharing it. But I think that sometimes when people say that, oh, I said this or I didn't say it, and it becomes like a fight, because you are still like arguing, like who's right, who's correct, or who's like, is tricking or not. And the interesting is, how can you move it forward, because you can keep having this discussion together on, I said sleep, or she didn't say sleep, or I misheard it, you didn't say it. But knowing
married people going like, yes.
Huh?
YouTube knows in this case.
That's right. In this case, we have an easily verifiable source. I think in the other cases, sometimes if you can't, there's no agreement, at least one of the best things to do is to say, well, look, this is the way I remember it. But if you remember it that way, I take you at your word, almost a bit of a agree to disagree, but an acknowledgement that, okay, we're remembering this conversation differently. I think it actually happened recently in the US election. There was a conversation that was reported. Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders had a conversation. Each of them remembered it very differently. And, there was no YouTube recording of it. So where is the truth? Maybe it's somewhere in between. There's no verifiable source. So no, I guess the point is just, I hope that something you can see from this is that it is entirely possible that you could 100% believe that this is what you heard or what you had said, that memory, as strong as it may be, may still be a false memory. There's actually, if I could mention one other study, they did a study, I should go back and look at exactly how, but basically they it's a bit Inception-y. They planted the idea that as a child, you, the participant in this experiment, had been lost in a mall, and oh, wasn't it? And then the security guard came and found you, and then your mom, came, and these people believed then that had happened, that they had actually, as a child, been lost in a mall and had been found by security and had to get collected by their parents. It never happened. And yet they genuinely did believe it. So it wasn't a case of making up a story and sticking to it. They believed this thing that had been planted. And so it kind of is a bit of a scary thing, I think, because when you start thinking, oh my gosh, if I start pulling at these threads, what's real, what can I trust? But I think it's a reminder to, again, be curious, be skeptical. Well, did that really happen? Am I just remembering something that somebody else told me? I for one have a bunch of memories from me as a kid when I'm too small to actually have that memory. I know that the memory is actually something that's been created from seeing a photo, and I've sort of built the memory of, oh, there I am, at that birthday party when I was a little kid. I don't actually remember it. So that, I think, is the fluidity of memory is something that's a little bit scary, but something really, I think, important to remember.
Doing design research, something that I certainly noticed is that older memories are very fake And so if you ask someone, what was your worst experience in a given service, they'll go back like 3 years ago, and they'll start talking about things that didn't exist at that time. And so I always try to make sure that the team focus very much on very, very recent events. Otherwise, old memories become very, very fake, as they just dilute in time, and the brain fills in the gaps with something fresher, and just make false memories. And so most of our memories are really false, actually. And that's why we look at the photograph and we, oh my goodness, that was me 20 years ago. I was actually elegant. And so we have these false memories, and that's, in design research, that's actually a very big issue.
And it's very easy to do. And it's, it can be accidental. It's not that someone's sort of deliberately going back and rewriting history, but sometimes just in the, each time we recall a memory and tell a story and it sort of gets restored again, maybe you told it slightly differently. There was another anecdote that you added that maybe you slightly embellished it, and that now goes back in as the truth, and the story sort of over time, becomes something vaguely resembling maybe what it originally was in its true form, to the extent that there is that kind of true memory, but becomes, yes, with the passing of time and the recalling of it and the slight variations, becomes something different.
And sometimes it can even be healing, because it's not always a bad thing if memory reconstructs itself another way. Because like if you always believe you had an unhappy childhood, you may just rewrite your own history, which is good.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. So it can be a great thing. It can be, I used to see that memory in this way, but I'm going to see it in this way instead. And that can be extremely powerful. So I think it's neither a positive or negative thing. It's just something to be aware of that we can use positively. We should also be aware of it in situations where someone's challenging our memory. But it's that I totally agree. I think it can be really powerful to be able to reframe a memory in a different way, to see something in a different light. I completely agree.
There's
Great point.
Animation. I was looking for the animation. I can't find it anymore, but there's an animation and it's based on research they've done about 9/11 and the way people remember the events around 9/11 in New York City, where so they basically gathered all kinds of stories, and they looked at where the people were. And for instance, people would recall seeing things that they could not possibly see from where they were working.
Yep.
But it's it's a memory they have, and they're not lying, and because there's no reason for it. But there's there was a number of I think there was like 40% of people in the US misremember sort of the actual events or where they were and what they saw and what they experienced.
Yep.
Really fascinating.
I'm sorry. As a New Yorker who was here when that happened, you have to remember that it was being constantly televised.
Yeah.
Like it was, they were showing it over and over and over again. And I actually rode my bike uptown, which took about an hour and 15 minutes, just like an hour maybe. And between the time that the towers were hit and the time, so they actually collapsed while I was halfway up, and I didn't see it happen. So I saw a bunch of people at the UN like staring downtown, and I didn't know what was going on. And I got to my mother's house, which is where I was going, and she was in tears. And so I didn't see it happen the first time. And so it's like very firm in my memory that I saw it on after it happened on the television. But I think so many people, like it was constant over and over and over again. Yeah. So it kind of makes sense that people would embed those memories, right?
Yep. And I think that part of what you want to then take away is that I think there's this temptation when, like, let's say Nina, that you weren't as firm that you were riding your bike and you thought you also had actually seen them fall. Let's say that someone then says, no, I took a photo of you. You were riding your bike. Like you hadn't made it down. Then you definitely couldn't have seen it. There's a temptation then to sort of, stand and point and say, liar, but it's not actually the person may not have, hasn't actually lied. They genuinely had believed because of, as you said, they've seen so much footage. It's kind of been the memory has been rewoven in memory about how they had actually experienced it. And so I think part of what we can do is say, let's have a little bit more sort of kindness and compassion. It's not necessarily that someone is now declared to be a liar, that they made that up. It's entirely possible that this could have happened through this process that we've just been talking about in a way that was not intentional.
I shared a story once with my friends and then my wife said, "That's what you weren't there. I told you that." And I wasn't I?
Nina, were you going to say something else as well?
Oh, I was just going to say that also in that case, when it's tied to a trauma, and like I think in New York we had a really collective trauma that day. Like it was very evident in the, for about a week, everybody was just walking around in a daze, and it was a very, very, very beautiful day that day. So it was really surreal. Like there was nothing to do, and we all tried to give blood, and you got turned away, and it was just kind of so I think a lot of people internalized it in different ways. And so it makes sense to me that you would sort of feel like you wanted to feel like you were a part of it so that you could empathize more with, because it was so hard to process, It was.
Absolutely. No, I mean, so it's entirely, it seems plain that could definitely happen given all of those factors around. It was constantly televised. It was such a traumatic event for individuals and for the city. And so I completely agree. I think, Anna, I wanted to just add to your point that weren't you there? I thought you were there. It felt like you were there. That actually, that's sort of how I feel about the word sleep in that set. It feels like, weren't you there? You should have been there. The rest of your buddies were there, bed was there, nap was there, peace was there. So you should have been there. Why'd you miss the party?
I have many of those experiences. Yeah. People thought I was there. Yeah, it's true. It's true. You're everywhere. They say, you were at that conference in Tokyo, weren't you? People actually, they do tell me these things. And I said, I've never been to Japan in my life. Yeah. I saw you there. No, it wasn't me. But everyone was there. No, that's really, really, really important. And specifically if you're a researcher and you want to understand people's experiences and how they felt and so to also be aware that sometimes people, it's not about, it is a reality. So it's not a lie. It is the reality of these people, but there's something else going on as well with memory. So I think that's really, really, really interesting to, and it poses a problem obviously for a researcher, because you didn't question everything someone says, or but it's really cool. How did you? So just a personal question: how did you end up in all of this?
Well, I was working in behavioral science research in a public policy setting. I was working for Australia's Nudge Unit. If you've heard of those teams, they're usually a team sitting inside a government department, applying these kinds of principles to better design public policy. So my background was in economics, and I had worked as a management consultant and then moved into this space. And the idea is, I really liked behavioral science because it felt like the missing piece to layer on top of economics. Economics, we're assuming everybody's perfectly rational and maximizing their utility, and we model everything on that basis, and yet we know that that's not true. And so behavioral economics in a public policy setting says, okay, well, given what we know from psychology, how can we sort of layer that on top to understand how we could better design this policy so that it will actually have the effects we want to have. So I was working in that space back in Australia, and then starting to think about, well, how can we, it's all well and good applying these principles in a public policy setting, but I want people to be able to access these ideas and help them implement them in their own lives. And it didn't really feel like there were many ways that can currently happen. The current things out there are things like listening to a podcast or reading a book or reading an article about an idea, but it doesn't do, none of those things do the things that we wanted to do, which were make you really feel it and help you actually do it, live it in your own life. And so that was how it all kind of came together.
And how did you find the team, the people that you were working with? How did you connect to them?
So it was actually while I was working for this team back in Australia, Sendel Molinathan, who's one of my co-founders, was looking to collaborate with our team, and we often would have academics sort of collaborating on research that we were doing. So that's initially how I met Sendel, and Sendel knew Mike. They were together, both professors at Harvard, and we'd sort of separately been having these conversations about how could we take behavioral science further into people's lives in a way that they could experience it. I think the conversation with Mike was more along the lines of, so Mike's background is psychology. He's a professor in marketing at Harvard Business School, but to be a research psychologist and admit that you're doing anything that even kind of starts to broach into the sort of self-help type world. And this is not quite a self-help product. It's much more exploratory and about growth than self-help, but it's close enough that psychologists start to get a bit snobbish about these sort of things. And so there's a bit of a sense, I think, that, research psychologists, some of them think that self-help is something that you wouldn't really touch. But he was thinking, no, there are great things, there are great insights that we want to put back into the world. I think psychologists are so interested in the way we think and the way we interact. And then that all gets very sort of abstracted in papers and experiments. And what they actually really enjoy is finding a way to put those things back into the world. So that was sort of part of Mike's journey. And Sendel was the one who then connected us all up because we were having these conversations. So I think between the three of us, we're all covering bringing something slightly different to the table, but we all want to do the same thing, which is give these things back, put these ideas back, from the research world back into an individual's life and help them use them to just make something a little bit better, or make a conversation a little bit better, improve a relationship a little bit more. Just little changes that are practical, but also have that kind of aha moment.
Interesting so because so the self-help, I mean, I do think that also in general people will kind of see it as a self-help tool or app.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't know. Do you think is that something? Is that a bad? Because I didn't even know that would be a bad thing.
And I don't think it's a bad thing. But I think there are some people. So I think that for people who already like self-help, I think they're ready to sort of embrace something like this. I think it's also, though, part of what we want to do is encourage people who may not have thought that self-help is for them, that something like this could be for them. And I like to use an analogy around going to the gym. So for instance, let's say, if you break your leg, or you have a knee reconstruction, you tear your ACL and you have to do you have a surgery and there's months of physical therapy to kind of get back to normal. You're fixing a problem versus, let's say you don't have anything wrong with you right now. You just want to get a little bit fitter. You might start going to the gym or start bike riding or running or something, but it's not to solve a particular problem. It's just because you've absorbed the idea that it's good to have some cardiovascular fitness or some strength, and you want to start working on that a little bit. And we think that that's closer to what peak is, versus some self-help or more therapeutic products are more about the, have the surgery and and do the rehab type for the knee reconstruction. We're about, let's help you go to the gym. It's not to address some specific problem, but just to help you get a little bit stronger, a little bit fitter. And while you're there, if you've never been in a gym before and you want to get stronger arms, but you don't know what a bicep curl is, well, someone has to show you. So let us pick up the right weight for you and kind of put it in your hand and show you how that should look. And then you'll sort of start to become more comfortable doing it yourself over time. So that's how we want people to think about it, which is not really something, some people I think do think about their cognition and their emotions that way, that it's something that you kind of tend to, but we want to grow that space and make more people open to the idea of doing that and embracing that. And I think that's what Peak does in a way that not many other things do right now.
Are you familiar with the app Noom?
Yeah. So, and that, I think, have you used it, Nina?
I have. I think I also interviewed for a job there a long time ago before it got popular, but I think what they do is it's an interesting and different approach. Sorry, this is Inoki. He wants to say hello.
And it's powered by behavioral science, so it's similar. With a very specific ask in mind, though. I think around helping people think about making healthy choices with food, and usually someone's coming to Noom, I think, with a goal of, my assumption is people are coming because food is currently a bit of a problem in some realm and they want help thinking about it. And so it's definitely still powered by the same kinds of ideas, but I would say it's probably a little bit closer to the kind of the knee reconstruction end, in that there's an issue that someone has identified. I've got this issue, I want to get some help with the way that I approach food, and I'm going to turn to Noom to help me solve that. So what I would love is if someone using Noom says, I see how these principles in behavioral science could actually be really helpful in my life. I'd like to, now I feel like I understand how I should approach food. Can I explore a little bit more about how to apply other principles from this field in other aspects of my life? I think that person coming to Peak would be very well primed to be open to the kinds of things we're asking someone to do in Peak.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting too with all this stuff in the zeitgeist, like with the science of well-being course that's so popular.
Yes.
It's almost like the way you describe it, that Peak is a way of taking those learnings and applying them on a daily basis.
Exactly. And so Laurie Santos, who teaches that course at Yale, and it's also on Coursera. She's fabulous. And, we've chatted to her about this. She's, I think she's really popularized this idea that there's great learnings from science about how we can be happier. We can implement some of these things. There are, I think, she probably focuses a little bit more on the regular practice, and we also have some things that you start to get into a bit more of a regular practice. I'd say the one area we might be a little bit different is one of the things, to come back to my my curious post-it, but one of the reasons why I think sometimes people stop using certain apps or doing certain practices is over time, although they can be powerful, over time they can also become a little bit tedious, and then you feel like you failed if you miss a day of say gratitude journaling or something. And it's not that you failed, it's just that humans, we crave novelty, and we crave new ideas and new things. And so one of the things we try to do is to get people to try a bunch of different things, so that today you'll come and you'll have something about procrastination, and tomorrow it'll be something about conversation, and maybe for a 5-day period you'll try one particular thing that's a consistent thing, and then you'll try something else. So we want people to kind of embrace that imperfect human failure aspect, which says, it's okay if you get bored and miss your streak. We're not about streaks. We're not about making you feel like you failed. We want to just say, come and try something, and if you find something that works for you, keep doing it for a while, but don't feel like you now have to lock this in forever. I was speaking to someone recently who said they were trying to do a lot of this self-optimization stuff, and they'd done a lot of habit stacking, and they got to a point where they'd sort of stacked together like 6 hours worth of self-improvement, better myself type stuff, which they then just said, this is unsustainable. I can't have a second job, which is just about, doing my 3 blessings and gratitude journaling, and so we don't want people to start to feel stressed about it. But yes, it's definitely those same ideas from the Science of Wellbeing course are 100% in our app around helping you just do these things that can have an impact. And we just want to make it easy for you to do it, and to have that sort of, to feel something that makes you think, oh, it is working, or I do see what that concept is. So that's what we think we can hopefully offer.
Do you do a radio show or a podcast or something?
Do I? Well, you inspired me. You've got I usually see you on our calls. You have your setup.
No, I'm not talking about your microphone. I think you have a perfect voice for podcasts or radio.
Really thank you. No, nice you'll hear my voice a little bit in the app if you play around with it.
Oh, really? But, I haven't been to that before yet. I didn't go to that level yet. Level 1. I'll try more. No, seriously. thank you so much for having your voice here with us and explaining.
No, it was honestly such a treat. Thank you, all of you, for being such willing participants in this big experiment. I know, sorry about the Google Slides snafu, but hopefully we'll
part of the game.
Part of the game. Yep,
Yeah.
failing together, learning together.
I hope it's a small present for you, Beck.
It was I had a seriously wonderful time, and I was very honored to be invited in. So thanks all for having me and for being such great
Well,
participants.
once you figure out how works, the name of an app, which I kind of thought was an interesting name, which is going to be great for marketing. Once you figure that out, you please come back and show us, because we really want to know how that one works. And
I definitely will.
Yeah. So anyway, it was really, really, really nice to have you. Please come back another time to also tell us a little bit more about where the app is going and how it's going and how it's being developed, because I know there's still a lot of work to be done, right? So
very early
good
days.
luck
Yep.
with that, yeah, and keep
you.
us posted. For now,
and I would just put out one ask to just say, as Anne said, it's very early days, so we're, I would love to hear any feedback that any of you have as you continue to use the app. Please feel free to reach out to me anytime.
How do we reach you for feedback?
So it's Beck, BEC, at getpiqued.app, GETPIQUE. I'll type that in here.
Can we share that?
Yes.
All right, you type it in. Oh yeah, can you type it into the chat?
Some people have asked, when are we getting the Android app? I'm also an Android user, so
soon. It's on our roadmap. The thing I can share in the meantime is we have some experiences that are available to view in the browser. So it won't look quite as pretty, and not everything, we don't have the full functionality in the browser, so we can't share all moments in that view, but I will share a few that we can share with the Android users in the community as well.
All right. If you have anything to share, let us know. We'll share it with the community. And for now, thank you so much. And this is the end of the backstage, people. So thank you very much for everyone for joining and hanging out with us. Hopefully see you next week, and goodbye.
See you next week, everybody.
See you next week.
Thank you.
Bye,
guys. Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye, Arne. Bye-bye.